Hey, Moneymakers. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kalila Reynolds, and welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Half Mac Edition. If I tell you all the things that happened before the show tonight, you wouldn't believe me. So first, we had a power cut. So I'm like, this is my half-done face here, not even comb, because I had to finish getting ready in the dark. And then my mic wouldn't work. My camera wouldn't work. I had to find another computer to use. I had to rush over to a different location where it did have power to try to make it to you for the show tonight, because you know how it is. The show must go on. We cannot disappoint you, the viewers. We put so much effort into producing this show every single week that, you know, it has to happen. In my mind, nothing can stop taking stock from going on. We have another exciting episode of the show for you tonight. You may have seen me post about it on Instagram and on TikTok, but here's a look at what's coming up in the show, followed by what's hot in business.
Did you know there's only one Black-owned and woman-led contact lens manufacturer in the world? Black Pearl Global Investments, in a recent deal, acquired Florida-based contact lens manufacturer Hydrogel Vision Corp, making them the only registered company here in Jamaica to bring investment, medical, technology, and health expertise to the table. CEO of Black Pearl Global Investments, Dr. Shante Williams, will join us. And the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. One of Jamaica's 15 licensed brokerage firms is breaching JSE rules. What consequences does this have? And we look at the rise in U.S. food prices. What do we need to know, and how can we profit from it? We'll discuss. But first, here's what's hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. Media newcomer Verticast is reportedly buying Jamaica's second-largest television network, CVM. CVM Television Limited operates the free-to-air television station CVM TV and its affiliate cable platform CVM Plus. The station broadcasts 24-hour news, sports, and entertainment programs. CVM TV was acquired by AIC Barbados Limited in 2006, but has struggled with mounting debt and continues to trail behind its competitor for market share. Verticast is run by former Sportsmax boss Oliver McIntosh. Speaking on Taking Stock earlier this year, McIntosh said the company plans to move rapidly and strategically with its expansion. Jamaican shoppers cleared out aisles of goods over the weekend in preparation for what's now Hurricane Ian. Jamaica is projected to begin feeling the impacts of the weather system Saturday afternoon, but a last-minute shift saw Jamaica avoiding the 4 to 8 inches of rain that was forecast by the Met Service. However, the outer bands of the storm did result in heavy rain and flooding in some sections of the island. Hurricane Ian moved across the northwestern Caribbean on Monday. It's expected to make landfall in Florida as a major hurricane. First Rock Real Estate Investment says it is making progress with its share buyback program. The company is aiming to buy back 10% of its shares on the open market. So far, First Rock has purchased 250,000 US dollar shares priced between 4 to 5 cents US and 40,000 Jamaican dollar shares priced between $11.67 and $12. First Rock said it plans to repurchase 3.8 million JMD shares and 24.7 million USD shares through the program. The company said the purpose of the buyback is to unlock shareholder value over time. The government of Barbados has issued the world's first pandemic-protected government bond. The terms of the bond will allow payments to be suspended in the event of another global pandemic. The bond, which has a repayment period of 15 years, can be suspended for up to 2 years at a time and twice if necessary, but it cannot be cancelled altogether. Prime Minister Mia Mottley said this kind of option would have saved many countries from financial turmoil in 2020. Technology stocks continue to struggle in the U.S. as inflation continues to rise and the Federal Reserve continues to increase interest rates. The Nasdaq fell 5% last week after losing 5.5% the prior week, marking the worst 2-week stretch for the tech-heavy index since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Analysts say that investors have been dumping tech stocks because they're betting that rising inflation and higher interest rates will impact the companies that rallied the most during boom times. Tech stocks were the biggest gainers during the pandemic surge. What's Hot was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart. This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy.
Welcome back, everybody. Apologies that this is not the usual quality of the show. So if my audio sounds off, my lighting, my camera, my hair not even properly combed, all of these things are off. It is because we just had a blackout at the studio and I had to just come try find somewhere to do the show and bring this for you tonight. I had to finish getting ready in the dark. And that's just the way it is sometimes. But shout out to all of our viewers who are on early. Let me shout out some of you. Natoya says, yay! I'm happy you made it possible for the show to continue tonight. You know, I cannot, I have to make it, I have to find a way. Where there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way. The show must go on. Raquel Francis says, like and come in on the live stream and be merry. Chris Hill joining us all the way from Panama City, Panama. LeVar Henry says, Mandeville checking in. Let's get this money. Steppa checking from St. Thomas. And Natoya Dunn says, present. Bim checking in. I see some people from all over the world as well joining us this evening. And I want to shout out to all of you who, take the time every Tuesday night to join us. Truly appreciate it. You may have also seen on my Instagram platform. Did I announce it on Instagram? No, I didn't. Not yet. Email. So if you're on the email newsletter, KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter, you would have seen an announcement for Money Mission Live. And that is my new business offer, or I should say corporate offer. Not necessarily corporate either. It could be an association. So we have many people are members of various associations. It could be for a business. It could be for a group that you are in. It is simply my live version of kind of the masterclass. Partly, we cover three main things as it relates to financial education. We're going over budgeting. We are going over managing debt, especially credit cards. And of course, we're going over investing. So it's a 2-hour session with me in person or virtual, whichever you prefer. Tell your boss about it. If you are a boss, I strongly urge you to consider this for your team. Money Mission Live, the link is in the description box below for you to access Money Mission Live. I'm going to be doing this only in October and November. After that, it closes until sometime next year, definitely not before February. So check that out. But let me introduce our guest for this evening. This is a good one. We've been trying to book this guest for a few weeks now, and I'm very happy that we finally have them on. Did you know that there is only one Black-owned and woman-led contact lens manufacturer in the entire world? Not in Jamaica, not in the United States. Mentioning the United States before I introduce my guest, almost forgot to mention Hurricane Ian heading towards Florida this evening. So everybody in Florida, in Orlando, in Tampa, and surrounding areas, hoping that you stay safe. Yeah. So let's get back to our show. Like I was saying, did you know there's only one Black-owned and woman-led contact lens manufacturer in the world, and that is Black Global Investments. They recently did a deal to acquire Florida-based contact lens manufacturer Hydrogel Vision Corp, making them the only registered company here in Jamaica to bring investment, medical, technology, and health expertise to the table. So tell me all about the recent acquisition and expansion plans in Jamaica and the Caribbean. We have CEO of Black Pearl Global Investments, Dr. Shante Williams, and we also have her co-founder and chief investment officer, Dr. Carl Smart. Hi, Dr. Williams.
There we go. Hello. How are you?
Great. I'm good. Is Dr. Smart with you? There he is.
There he is.
Hello.
So you're both based in Florida?
No, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina, actually.
North
The plant's in Florida. Yeah.
So tell me about this partnership, Dr. Smart, Dr. Williams. How did you two meet?
I'll tell the short version. Carl can tell the rest of it. We actually met through church. So Carl and I got connected from a speech that I was giving, and his pastor heard me speaking and said, "You should come to church." And I thought, this guy's just trying to get me to come to Jesus. But instead, he actually introduced me to one of his parishioners, Dr. Smart. And we connected that day after church. And then for the next year, we played phone tag. And after that, we finally decided to have a meeting the day after Thanksgiving in 2018. And the rest is kind of history. We built out Black Pearl, and we've been going ever since.
What does Black Pearl do, Carl?
Sure. So Black Pearl actually is an asset management firm that focuses on healthcare and more
Carl, you might be on
specifically.
mute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. That focuses on healthcare and more specifically healthcare in 3 regions: the Caribbean, Africa, and North America. The Caribbean obviously is dear to me because I was born and raised in Jamaica, got all my primary training, my high school training at Cornwall College, shout out to Cornwall, and then subsequently came to the United States to kind of finish my healthcare career. So with that basis as a healthcare provider and recognizing some of the needs and my very much affinity towards Jamaica, we definitely decided that Jamaica and specifically Caribbean should be part of the asset management firm that Black Pearl is.
And you are actually from Jamaica, Carl. What part of Jamaica?
Montego Bay. Actually, more
Mo Bay
specifically,
in the house?
Anchovy. Anchovy.
Anchovy.
Yep.
So at what age did you migrate to go pursue your medical studies and practice?
So I went to Cornwall and graduated in 1980, believe it or not. It was a long time ago. And then I was age 16 and then came to the United States to do the rest of my medical education.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a doctor?
Actually, yes. And it's interesting because I remember there was this chemistry teacher, Mr. Taylor, at Cornwall at the time, who ultimately became the headmaster. He was incredibly encouraging. He actually was one of those people who recognized that I was pretty good at the sciences and more specifically chemistry, and kind of fostered that along. And with the foster, and here I am 40 years later.
And Dr. Shante, tell me about your upbringing. Where did you grow up?
Actually, I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. I keep moving away, but coming back because this is home for me. So I grew up, as a regular nerdy kid that liked science here in Charlotte. And I think for me, it was always an attraction to science and medicine. So from an early age, I thought actually I was going to be a heart surgeon. And my parents cultivated me in STEM in order to help me along that path. And I took a big detour after I went through clinical training.
A big detour from heart surgery. So
all the way into finance.
What type of medicine do you both practice now?
So
I'm completely out of the game. So I am only in finance. So I only do investments. I work with a lot of healthcare companies, but I used to be in neuro-oncology. So I used to help make drugs to stop brain tumors from spreading through the brain.
And Dr. Smith, you?
And I actually am a pulmonary critical care doctor. So those patients that have all kinds of lung issues, asthma, lung cancer, and so on, that's what I take care of. And in conjunction, I do critical care. So those that are in the intensive care unit, quite sick, requiring a lot of invasive therapy, that's what I do.
It's interesting that you both come from medicine and, in finance and investments. I'm sure my husband is listening very keenly because he's also a doctor. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he's always talking about this business that he wants to start. So take some notes, babe. Dr. Shante and Dr. Smith can show you the plan.
He can give us a call.
give you a call for some advice and maybe some
Yep.
investment as well for some
There we go.
medical facilities here in Jamaica. Right. So how did you end up? In fact, before we get to the recent acquisition, then tell me how Black Pearl started. What's the objective, or what was the objective of this company?
Sure. So
I'll let
it's
Carl
pretty
answer
simple.
that.
Sure, it's pretty simple. What we recognized was that there clearly are needs, and those needs are being driven by some specific things, which is lack of access, number one. Number two, even if you have access, then most people can't afford the care. And when they do get the care, oftentimes it is there's an inefficiency that occurs that leads to the outcome that oftentimes is not what we necessarily want. So those being our four pillars in terms of efficiency, better outcomes, low cost, and access is what essentially drives the Black Pearl team.
You want to add to that, Dr. Shante?
No, I think Carl has really covered everything. I think from my perspective, it's always important for us to, if we control who writes the checks, if we control who owns the assets, we can take better control of our destinies as people, as business owners. So for me, it's always been about making sure that we're able to write checks and get money into the hands of the people who can do the most good.
Absolutely. So what was the first investment that you made?
Oh, the first investment we made, me ever or Black Pearl?
As Black Pearl.
As Black Pearl. Actually, it happened during 2020 in the middle of, or right at the beginning of COVID in the summer of 2020. We actually made our first investment in a telehealth company for mental health. And this is kind of predating everybody else kind of jumping into the mental health space, specifically digitally. And so Carl and I had been cultivating a company for a year. And, you know, I think as practitioners, we knew that isolation and, you know, people, the human toll, the human capital loss that was happening was going to have a real effect on people's mental capacities. And so we decided to take that next step forward, and we made our first investment in that company. And actually, it was a super successful investment because we got in early. We were able to prove out the concept, and then we actually got an acquisition offer for our investment within 6 months, which is almost unheard of in the finance space.
That's amazing. What has it been in these past 2 years? Because you launched during COVID, which, when you think of it, perhaps it is a good time to launch a medical technology company in the middle of a pandemic when healthcare is at the focus.
Yeah. I think for us, we really thought we started at the tail end of 2018, and all of 2019 we were laying the plans and the foundation. 2020 was going to be our coming out party, and ironically, we're going to start raising our money in China in March of 2020, which everybody knows what was happening in China at that time. So I always think the Lord definitely will order your steps. And so we got other opportunities that came our way. And so we refocused. And then, of course, everybody was talking about healthcare. Everybody was focused in on it. But most importantly, people were thinking very differently about what we needed to do to make a change in communities.
And Dr. Smith, what's it been like for you these past 2 years, being in this industry, seeing the changes that the world has gone through, especially?
I live with COVID every day, meaning that because I'm a pulmonologist and COVID affects a fair amount of the lung issues with COVID patients, I see them every day. So they range from people who are relatively mild symptoms to people who are actually sick and pretty much on the verge of dying. But what we've tried to do over that time is to obviously offer them, whether it's vaccine or medications, to hopefully ward off any long-term effect, which is what we're now seeing. But from an investment perspective, I think what COVID has done is that it really has put a bright light on the fact that we really have to rethink how it is that we approach healthcare and healthcare investment. I think there's a point where we kind of looked at the shiny and looked at the big and not necessarily pay attention to what was going on in the background in terms of there's still a great deal of deployment of money that needs to happen from an infrastructure standpoint. People weren't paying attention to that. There's a great deal of monies that need to be deployed, at least from the perspective of being able to enhance the doctor-patient relationship. So we learned all that, and full circle now, where we are from a Black Pearl perspective, is taking all those lessons learned and deploying monies or capital in place that we think are actually going to result in a significant improvement beyond just the what we call the communicable diseases. So whether it's diseases related to cancer, hypertension, diabetes, or specifically the infrastructure that's needed to make sure that the patients get what they want. That's how we as Black Pearl are looking at the post-COVID effect and the importance of what we learned from COVID.
Very interesting. All right. So tell me what kind of impact Black Pearl has been having in the past couple of years on North America, where you live, the Caribbean, and even Africa, Dr. Shante?
Well, I'll tell that with a story. Black Pearl has been focused on deploying capital to companies now for the last 4-ish years. And the impact that we seem to make with entrepreneurs, with founders, with business owners is really coming in with that expert help, that advisory work, but then adding in the capital. Every time we are able to write a check into a company that has, really been trying to bootstrap it or, push themselves along, and we're able to write that check, we're met with tears. Really, people now seeing someone else is believing in me. I have other people on my team. Carl and I were just in Africa, and in Rwanda, we did a pitch competition for students, and there was a young woman who had a fantastic startup. And for us, she was doing the things that we thought were most important. She was taking care of her community. She was taking care of the environment. She was also adding in that business component. And so she won the pitch competition. And when we announced her name, she broke out into tears. And Dr. Smart and I both just looked at each other and says, this is real. This is the impact we get to make every single day with entrepreneurs, because they know, capital is really hard to come by in a lot of spaces. And to have someone write a check for you really changes the game. So for us, the impact to date has really been coming in with that capital, helping business owners get to that next level and really get to where they're trying to go. So, we have, dozens of stories now where we've written that check and the founders are just overwhelmed. And then not only are they overwhelmed, their business takes off. They start generating more revenue. They start doing the things that they wanted to do really because they had the capital.
That's amazing. And what about here in the Caribbean?
Well, fun fact, Dr. Smart's son, Daniel Smart, is actually the president of the Caribbean. And so he actually just left the island a couple of days ago. He and a couple of other employees that we have focused on in the area. And, what we have spent our time doing really is saying, where is there a need? Where can we most help? One, on the healthcare side, can we make care more available to people? Can we make it cheaper? Can we make it more affordable? Can we make it more effective? And then we came in and said, who else is doing work in this space? Who else is a business owner? So I anticipate we'll start deploying capital and lending and investing in some companies. I will say I can't necessarily tip the hat, but I do think we'll make some acquisitions on the island as well.
Ooh, okay. Well, we're definitely staying tuned for that. Our viewers would like to hear this type of news about acquisitions, about jobs, of course. By the way, why did you make the decision to register the company here in Jamaica instead of in the United States?
So we actually, twofold. So we are registered in the US. We are also registered in Jamaica. We are also registered in Africa, in Accra, Ghana. So for us, it's really important that countries know that we're there not just to take, but to give. So we are a business that has roots in the community. We hire from the community. Our offices are there in the community. We're not just a company that's going to fly in and out. So having an office on the ground in Jamaica is incredibly important for us. And I think it's always nice for people to come into your front doors and know that this company is anchored here. They're just not some foreigners that think they know better than everybody.
I like to hear that. So what type of initiatives do you have here, Dr. Carl?
Well, we actually, a few. So one is obviously now that we're on the ground and we actually have representation there. We are now starting to look at various companies to deploy capital into. We are actually trying to work with some of the larger facilities to see exactly what their needs are. We are in the process of thinking about potential, at this point anyway, public-private partnerships, see how that would work. So we'll invite, obviously, anyone who wants to talk to us about that to come and speak to us. And we are also in the process of just literally just making sure that people know that we are here, that we are actually a company that is going to contribute from an economic standpoint to the local happenings. And yeah, we're here.
That's great. I see Carl Sinclair online saying, I love this. We definitely love the initiatives that you two and the rest of your team are undertaking here in the Caribbean, in the US, and globally around the world. So tell me about the new acquisition now. Black Pearl is your company. You have now acquired a contact lens manufacturing company. Tell me about that.
So we acquired the company that actually is under the name Black Pearl Vision. Now, I just have to shout out these lovely colored eyes that I'm wearing to match my outfit are our products. So I have to shout that out. But we came in looking at Hydrogel Vision, which is actually down in Sarasota right now, bracing for the hurricane. We saw that as a company that had a long track record of excellence. They make incredibly good contact lenses. They are able to do a lot of customization. And ultimately, you know, from a business perspective, we saw we're able to come into a market where there is not a lot of diversity. And there's a lot of people in the US, more than 10 million people are African American and wear contacts. So we have large markets. And in particular, on the side of color, a lot of the colors actually aren't developed for darker skins or melanated skins. And so for us, it gave us an opportunity to really start to cultivate products that were, you know, really for us and by us. So Hydrogel has been an incredible addition to the Black Pearl family. And we anticipate, you know, we'll start stacking up other companies right underneath that Vision brand to make sure that good vision is accessible to everybody around the world.
That's amazing. I see you have a fan online. Inga says, wow, she's smart and beautiful as well.
Thank you.
And Inga is based in Orlando, so not too far away from where you are. I guess, Inga, I hope you're bracing for the hurricane. Prayers with you and everyone in that side this evening. Right, so Black Pearl Vision, and you're representing your brand. I love that you're wearing your own brand of contacts. What is the vision for the ultimate company?
Oh, you know, I think the vision is going to be to, one, first and foremost, provide good contacts. If you need vision correction, I need vision correction. Provide quality products at an accessible price, really making sure that people are able to access the products that we have in our portfolio. But then we get to do some other things that are a little more exciting, well, just as exciting, I should say, not just on the color contact side, but because we have these two beautiful facilities down in Florida that are FDA regulated and inspected, we are going to start looking forward to bringing in entrepreneurs and business owners who need access to that level of regulated space to help develop their products, to get their products out the door. So we are really looking forward to being able to more collaboratively work with new ideas, new concepts, people who just don't have access to a building. If you want to build something in medical and you need to go and get an FDA regulated facility, that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars a month, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually get through the inspection process. So by us owning these assets, we are going to be able to open up our doors to many more people to come in and just create and really make a difference, not just in the vision space. I foresee it being, you know, extending over into beauty, where there's skin products, maybe even dental, all of those things that we all consume, but, you know, I think we're all now starting to find out we don't necessarily know whether or not they got tested on our skin, whether it's good for our skin, where it's really being made. And so offering up those higher level facilities to our entrepreneurs, I think is going to be baked into our DNA as we move forward.
We have a few questions from the viewers. So Carla wants to know, will you be supplying those lenses in Jamaica?
Absolutely, Carla.
Yes.
And yes. We are starting to work with distributors there, and we have been thinking about how do we, best market to the people of Jamaica. So yes, you will be able to directly purchase our lenses on the island.
Natoya is asking, are these contact lenses really able to replace medicated glasses or just fashion?
They're a real deal. I will tell you, I have a -2 in one eye and a -2.25 in the other eye, and I can see very clearly. So I swap out my contacts for my glasses, and I swap out the colors, which are also prescription. So we can, if you don't need prescriptions, we can make those lenses in color. But if you do need it and you want to change it up, we are offering you that same availability with good vision as the goal.
Steve wants to know, and bear with me guys, because I seem to be having some internet connectivity issues, but Steve wants to know, do you have any plans? Let's see if it's coming up. It's not coming up. Let me know if you're seeing the comment. Do you have any plans of raising capital in Jamaica?
Well, I'll let the Dr. Smart, who is Jamaican, answer that question.
Absolutely, Yaman. Yes. We absolutely do. We recognize that the capital market is fairly robust in Jamaica. And without a doubt, again, based on what our thesis, our investment thesis is, we feel that we can really generate and bring significant value to the island. So yes, we plan on certainly raising and again, deploying there.
Okay, good to know. Munshi also wants to know, related question, will we be able to buy shares in the company anytime soon? So any plans to IPO?
I don't know that that's directly on our plan right now, but I know that is something that we have found a lot of folks are interested in. So you never know what might come.
Yeah, and you have more than one market. You have multiple markets, Jamaican markets. Lots of IPOs have been coming up in recent times. Who knows? Since Dr. Smart said you do plan to raise capital here, it could be something that you consider in the future. And then we have a final comment from Carl, who says that you are doing what a lot of Jamaicans are not doing to make Jamaica a better place. So that's a big up for the two of you.
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Shante, Dr. Smith. Sorry, I keep calling you Dr. Smith, and it's not Smith, it's Smart. Dr. Smart. I hope you have a great, I wish you all the best with this company, and thank you again for joining us.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we will take a break and come back. So you have your market recap, and then we have the analysts standing by.
This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, Insurance Made Easy. Time now for your market recap. The JC Combined Index lost over 3,000 points, or almost 1% last week. 118 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, September 23, 2022. 46 advanced, 67 declined, and 5 stayed the same. 142 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $1.6 billion. Spurtree Spices was the week's most traded stock. It took up 12% of market volume, with people buying and selling 17 million shares in the company. The stock opened this week at $3.48. Trans-Jamaican Highway traded the second highest volume, with people buying and selling 14 million shares in the company. It opened this week at $1.47. And Wigton rounded out last week's most traded, taking up nearly 9% of market volume, with 12 million shares trading. The stock lost 1 cent to open this week at 54 cents. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. JMMB 7% VRJMD CR preference shares was last week's biggest gainer. The stock was up 28% to open the new week at $2.50. CAC 2000 was the week's second biggest gainer, up 19%. The stock gained $1.34 to open this week at $8.30. And rounding out our biggest gains, Cygnus Real Estate Financial JMD is up 17% to open Monday at $10.91. On the losing side now, iCreate was last week's biggest loser, down 36% to open Monday at $2.20. Epley 7.5% preference shares due 2024 was last week's second biggest loser. The stock was down 24% to open Monday at $6. And rounding out the biggest losers was 138 Student Living Variable Preference. The stock fell 23%, closing the week at $50. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index lost 5 points last week. Massey was the most traded stock. It opened this week at $4.66 TT. National Flour Mills was the market's biggest gainer, up almost 10% to open this week at $1.58 TT. And on the losing side, Cinema One fell 12% to open the week at $5.98 TT. In the U.S., indices continue to decline, with the Dow Jones falling almost 4% and the S&P 500 and Nasdaq dropping more than 4%. Over at the pumps, motorists saw another 25-cent increase in gas prices last week. On the other hand, the cost of diesel fell another $4.50. In foreign exchange, it took an average $152.69 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 5 cents less than a week before. And on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices rose last week, gaining almost 4% after an 8% fall the week before. The cryptocurrency was trading at $19,157 on Monday. Ethereum was also up over the past 5 days, gaining 6% after a 20% dip last week. The cryptocurrency was trading at $1,323 on Monday. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Jamaican National Group. We'll help you find a way. Disclaimer. This is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back to Taking Stock, the post-storm version. I don't know what this is, why we just suddenly had a power cut. All of a sudden, if you joined us late and you're wondering why I look so, why this is not the usual quality, I look different, I sound different, my hair not combed, it's because we had a power cut at the studio and I had to just run over to my house real quick and just find a spot, and then now the internet seems to be in and out, and just everything that could go wrong this evening went wrong at the very last minute. But I am here to do the show for you to the best of my ability, and I shout everyone out who has weathered it with us, who's held firm, continues to watch the show, and continues to support. Reminding you as well to like the video, guys. If you haven't done so yet, hit the thumbs up button, like this video, and share it with a friend. You can share it so easily. WhatsApp, on Facebook, on wherever, whatever platforms that you like to use. Just share this video and let other people know what we are talking about and what we're trying to accomplish here at Taking Stock, making financial education, financial literacy, and financial news for everyone. And I almost forgot to give you our poll question for today. Here is tonight's poll. You can take this poll over on YouTube, or I should say right here on our YouTube channel, the community tab, or you can head on over to Twitter later and answer the poll question. What do you think about the JSC's plan to introduce short selling later this year? Finally, it's finally here. B, this is going to cause chaos on the market. C, more education is needed. Or D, other. Just leave a comment. What do you think? So, we had that interview last week with the Jamaica Stock Exchange about their plans to introduce short selling to the market later this year. I say finally, because it's been some years that they've been talking about introducing this, and it is finally coming to fruition. But what are your thoughts? Because I see some comments coming in, people saying it's going to cause chaos. What do you think? Do you think it is high time that the JSC introduces this, even though our market is small? Do you think that this is just going to cause chaos on the market? Do you think that more education is needed, or a combination of all of the above, or none of the above? Leave a comment and take tonight's poll. Now, let me introduce our guests for the evening. Today, and this is the analyst. Time now for the analyst, right? Today, we're joined by senior research analyst at JN Group. His name is Jamar Brown. We also have business writer at the Observer newspaper, David Rose. And we have a guest analyst this evening, a special guest, someone I met via FinCon a couple weeks ago. He is co-founder of the Profit Room right here on YouTube. So when you're finished watching this show, head on over to his YouTube channel and follow the Profit Room. His name is Ernest Curry. Welcome to the show, guys.
Night, Kalila.
Thank you, Kalila. Good night, guys.
Good night. How you guys doing?
Good.
David, what's going on with the
That's an
sunglasses
explanation for
tonight?
after. That's an explanation
Do I
for
need to
after.
give you a pair of Dr. Shante's contact lens?
No, but don't worry.
You had eye surgery
No.
recently?
I probably need it for the next week or so, but all is well.
All right, I'll leave you alone. You can. No, you can explain later. But let's start with you, Jamar. Welcome to Taking Stock. Great to have you on.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Kalila. Happy to be here.
So we
Whoa.
And that is technology just out for the second. Just give her a second.
All right, guys. So I've heard from Sachel that I should just go into my topic. So I'm going to share my screen now.
all right, so I'm back. You guys seeing me clearly? Everything is good now?
Yes, Kalila, seeing you.
Yeah, I think I got bumped offline for a second. So I was just asking you, I was just saying that we are in the final year. I can't believe September is pretty much already. Give an overview of what the Jamaica Stock Exchange's performance has looked like for the first 3 quarters of the year, and tell us why we may be seeing this type of result.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now and get into it. So please let me know if you're seeing it.
You can start.
Okay. All right, so as Kalila said, I'll be looking at what is driving the weak performance we have seen from the Jamaica Stock Exchange from the beginning of the year up until last Friday, September 23, 2022. But before we get into this year, let's first take a look at last year's performance. Looking at the beginning of 2021 through to September 23, 2021. Now, I'll be focusing on the main market as it's largely responsible for the performance of the combined index. And we are aware that there's a divergence between the performance of the junior market companies and those in the main market. And this is likely due to investors expecting higher growth from junior market companies. As we would have experienced last year, several junior market IPOs would have been listed, and this would have influenced the increased interest in the junior market. Now, hopefully you're seeing the graph that we have here, which shows the main market value and volume for 2021. Now, despite several national lockdowns due to COVID in 2021, we can see that the Jamaica Stock Exchange's main market index still managed to advance by 1.89% to close on September 23 at 403,090 points relative to where it began the year at 395,614 points. Now, the total volume traded was 3.96 billion units, and the average volume traded was 21.4 million per day. Let me zoom in to clearly show the graph a bit more. Would have seen that we had lockdowns throughout last year, had one in February, and we also had one in August. And as you can see there, the average daily volume was about 21.4 million per day. Now, after this growth, although it was marginal, 1.89%, we would have expected this positive momentum to continue into 2022, which is this year. And that optimism would have been spurred on by several factors. First of which is consumer/business confidence being up in Q4 of 2021, which was the last quarter of that calendar year. Right. Now as you can see here, confidence among both businesses and consumers improved in the fourth quarter of 2021, reaching their highest levels for last year, but they were still below pre-pandemic measures. In addition to that, we had infection, hospitalization, and deaths decreasing as the year had progressed. And we also had the tourism sector rebounding and the labor market picking up during that time. Now, the main catalyst that we thought would have been the positive, that would have driven positive results in the market, would be that some of the biggest companies would have shown improvements in their results. Now we have selected three of them to highlight, namely the NCB Financial Group, Grace Kennedy, and Wisynco. And as we can see here, for all 4 quarters of the calendar year 2021, all 3 of these companies experienced growth quarter upon quarter. Now, despite this, the reality is that for this year, starting January through to September 23, last Friday, 2022, there has been a decline in both the volume and value of the main market this year. The main market index declined by 10.11% to close last Friday at 356,098 points, relative to where it began this year at 396,155 points. Let me zoom in on the graph that we have here, so you can see where it started there to where it is currently. Now, in addition to this, average daily volume is now trading at 16.6 million, which is a 22.5% decrease from the 21.4 million it would have been trading in the equivalent period last year. Let me zoom out. Now, looking at the graph, we see where the relaxation of COVID measures, which would have led to increased economic activity, it more or less coincided with the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, unfortunately. And this war would have contributed to a high inflationary environment worldwide. Now, this had led to central banks around the world having to implement contractionary measures, which we have also observed locally. On the graph, we have pointed out several of the policy rate hikes which the BOJ has actually implemented. The most recent of which would have been the policy rate increasing to 6.0% in the end of August. Now, let's dig in a bit into the reasons behind the decline. Get into a bit more detail here. Now, valuation is driven by 3
Before you
things.
go into that, Jamar, what's that big spike there in August in volumes? just
This
before
spike,
the BOJ raised rates to 6%.
I am actually not sure, Kalila. I am not sure what this spike would have been.
David, do you know? David always know.
Which
Help me out,
period is that,
David.
Kalila?
I'm asking, what's that big yellow spike in that big spike in volume in August? What was that?
In August? Hmm. There were a lot of trades that occurred that time. You had what? You probably had Barita, you probably had NCB.
These would be
You
a
had
lot of
several
very
large.
big trades because it's so.
Oh,
It's
GK was one
close.
trade. You had about 10 million units of GK trading on one particular day. It was on probably the second or third week of August. So that's one example. And you probably had a couple other significant trades occurring on August 31, which was your end of quarter trades. We usually see end of quarter, end of month trades where you see these usual large volumes occurring or passing through the market. But GK had a massive trade in August, specific as well.
All right. All right. Go ahead, Jamar.
Thanks for that, David. Right, so as I said, looking into the reasons why we have seen the decline year to date. Now, valuation is driven by three things: cash flow, risk, and growth. And we believe that investors are overly concerned about these three factors. And we have identified three main catalysts driving the negative market sentiment that we have seen, as well as the consequent decline that we have seen in the market. Um, Getting into the catalyst, the first one, and we would have touched on these factors in the previous slide, but getting into a bit more detail. Inflation, with the expected inflationary environment, investors are likely to be concerned about the impact on cash flows. Now, as prices increase, companies are faced with two choices. One, do we absorb price increases? Or two, do we pass these on to our customers? Now, if they pass on these increases, demand could decline. And if they don't, the company's margins could be negatively impacted. And at the end of the day, either of these two choices is likely to lead to a decline in cash flows. The second catalyst, which is a lead on from the inflation, would be the BOJ increasing policy rates to combat this inflation. Now, in valuation, risk is captured through the discount rate, and as the policy rate increases, the discount rate used to value future cash flows also increases. And this in turn drives the value of investments lower. Additionally, as risk increases, investors are looking towards fixed income instruments more, for example, BOJ CDs, as safer alternatives given the current climate. The impact this has, which is the BOJ increasing the policy rate, is increasing risk, as you see in that section, impact. Now, leading on from this, the third catalyst is recessionary fears. And we have been hearing a bit more talk about recessionary fears in the UK as well as in the US, and a bit more locally as well. And with this talk, growth concerns are increasing among investors as they look into 2023 and beyond. Now, usually a recession is accompanied by negative growth in the overall economy, higher unemployment, and lower wages. And right. So those would be the reasons that we have identified. Now, looking ahead over the next 3 months, we are not expecting any major reversal in the direction of the markets. And in addition to the concerns that we have outlined here, this last quarter, which we're approaching, has been historically characterized by low trading and overall weaker activity in comparison to the previous 3 quarters in the year. As we look forward to 2023, we are not seeing any positive catalysts that would likely drive the overall market higher. However, we still believe that there will be strong opportunities for long-term investors to pick up on going forward. And that's the end of my presentation.
Do you have any data on how the junior market has performed? Do you
Yes,
have any data on how the junior market has performed year to date?
yes, I do actually. The junior market for this year to date, it has actually increased. It's increased by 19.6%. Well, and as I said
Nice.
before, the main market would have declined by 10.11%, which drove the combined market to decline by 7.8%. So, as I said before, we've seen 2 years of strong performance from the junior market, because last year, year to date, the prior period, the junior market would have advanced by 21%, while the main market was advancing at 1.89%, which drove the combined market down to 3.28%. So we're seeing growth in the junior market compared to the main market.
And for the benefit of Ernest, who is our guest analyst this evening, I'm sure you're not quite familiar with what the junior market is, Ernest, and what the markets are like here in Jamaica. I'm sure you're listening keenly. So the junior market is simply a place for smaller companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and they get the benefit of tax breaks for 10 years. The first 5 years, they pay zero corporate income tax. The second 5 years, so years 5 to 10, they pay 50% of their corporate income tax. And it's intended to nurture those companies. They also, of course, get the benefit of raising capital via the market. So we've been seeing good opportunities there on the junior market so far this year, with growth at 19% compared to a negative 10% on the main market among the larger companies. We've also seen a lot more listings coming on the junior market as well, because it's like I said, designed for smaller companies. So
No, that's great information. Now, you brought out something, I don't want to get off topic. Can you short on the junior markets if that gets approved?
they haven't set the rules for it yet. I had an
Okay.
interview with them earlier this week.
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to allow it for all companies, but
Okay.
we definitely are going to be paying attention to see what the rules are going to be when they do allow shorting, possibly. Before we come to you, Ernest, David has some information that he wants to share with us. I almost call you Stevie Wonder. David, you wrote an article this week in the Observer about a company, a member dealer, a broker of the JSC that continues to be in breach of one of the JSC's rules. So just explain that for me, because it was a mouthful. Explain what's going on there. And I imagine that you can't say who the company is.
Well, we can kind of interpolate, and guess which broker that is. We can't say who, but we can estimate or figure it out based on what's publicly there. But the JSC has a particular rule in terms of something called excess net free capital. So after you add up total active assets and you subtract margin and overdue margin accounts and certain liabilities, and subtract either $5 million or 5% of your total liabilities, you end up with something called either excess net free capital or you have a deficiency. So back in the April report for the JSC's RMOD, which is the regulator arm that publishes their report every month, it showed that for the March period, one broker, or in this case member dealer, fell below zero, which means that they're in a deficiency. And based on the last 2% came out last week Monday, we're seeing where that broker is still in a breach, which is a problem. And the thing is, if a broker is in breach of the JSC's excess net free capital requirements, it likely means that they're in a breach of the FSC's total regulatory capital to total risk-weighted assets requirement as well, which kind of potentially tells us that that broker is having some serious issues, because although we'd have seen the decline in asset prices, for example, equities, bonds, and so forth, within the last call it 3 months within that period between the Russia-Ukraine war and so forth, for you to be in deficiency for so long and not have that corrected so as yet is pretty serious. The fact that they're still, trading at sense or still operating means that they've likely communicated to the JSC and to the FSC their position right now, and have likely gotten external guarantees to actually continue operation, because it's really a significant risk, not just to their operations but also to their clients, because let us say the broker has client funds that they need to release or so forth, they might be in a position to actually release those funds. So this goes to show, why any broker or anybody that plans to get into the brokerage business actually has to ensure that their capital position is very robust. So based on the companies that actually, or I should say publicly, release their total regulatory capital ratio publicly, so we know that, for example, we know so far that, Barita, GK Capital, JMB Securities, JN Fund Managers, Mayberry Investments, NCB Capital Markets, Proven Wealth, Sagicor Investment, Victoria Mutual Wealth Management, Scotia Investments, they're all in compliance with the ratio requirement by the FSC. And if you're in compliance with that requirement, that means you're also in compliance with the JSC's own rules as well. Because the FSC's one is at a higher bar or higher standard, so that means that you're in compliance already. So we can kind of just guess or estimate in a sense, whichever other brokers it might be. We've seen so far this year SSL has been late in their reports to the JSC's RMOD in terms of the monthly reports. They've been fined and sanctioned for it. Barita's July 2021 report was incomplete. They were fined for that, and in Proven's February 2022 report was late by a day. They got fined as well. But right now in the brokerage space, or I should say the securities dealer space, everybody is becoming a lot more conservative because of how the environment is kind of volatile. So, for example, Victoria Mutual Investments Limited, which is the parent company of VM Wealth, they said they're suspending dividend payments because they want to have a sufficient buffer to actually protect the company in case they're further declining asset prices. And even for Proven Group, they're maintaining more capital, so the environment is very tense and volatile right now.
Yeah, I feel like everybody is scratching out names and eliminating in their minds to see who the company is, which one is left out of the ones that you have called.
There are
already.
15 brokers. I put all the brokers that are in compliance already on the list. They can go and try and figure it out. But the reality is, it's very concerning though, Khalil. It's very concerning.
It is, but here's the question though. What are the consequences, not only for the company, but for the clients of this company?
As I said, I'm not in this space like that, but for one respect, it affects your licensing. So if you're not in compliance with the regulatory requirements, in this case, the regulator can actually take away your license, which affects your ability to operate. So one day clients could just be in a position where they probably couldn't sell their assets or do business with a broker. So right, as I said, they're likely to take an external guarantee of a capital commitment actually still be in operation, because regulators don't play when there are these kind of breaches, especially when they come on to capital breaches. And considering what's going on right now, and even their prior past, I'm sure the FSC or the JSC will be taking this very lightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but here's one thing about it. Sorry,
it's definitely something for us to keep monitoring, David. Keep us informed.
Here's one thing about it, though, Kalila. This also might mean there might be an acquisition in the works, because right now, if the broker has gone 3 months and still not corrected deficiency, that means that they're potentially finding somebody to actually take them over. Because remember, the license actually has value.
Right. That's a good point. So we'll keep reading your articles, David, and see what happens there. Ernest, we're coming to you now. They're at the Profit Room. So tell the viewers quickly what you do on your YouTube channel.
So at the Profit Room, we're a stock market trading education company. So we teach people how to trade the various financial markets. And we focus a lot on a lot of economics, especially with the futures market right now, dealing with agricultural commodities and also indexes like the NASDAQ, the SPY, things of that nature. So that's what we primarily do, educate people on those different markets and how to profit from them.
Do you do anything on the foreign exchange market? Because you see the big news over the past couple of days is what's been happening with the pound versus the US dollar.
Correct. We do a lot on that as well. And that's one of the biggest factors now, as you see, because the Fed's trying to beat inflation, that dollar is getting powerful and powerful. So every morning on our end in the US, we can see coming from the Euro session to the US session, how a lot of people, that's why you see the market pulling back, are finding more strength in that dollar, right? Because of the interest rates versus, and it's affecting other currencies as well, forcing other currencies to start raising rates and things of that nature. So we do trade that market and teach people that market as well, along with like the futures market, things of that nature.
And you do live trading on YouTube, huh?
Yeah, we do live trading, and like one of the biggest things with that is so people can actually see what's actually going on in the market, right? So like one of our biggest things now is having you see what actually takes place on a daily basis. So one thing like I wanted to talk about is like the rise in food prices and the costs. So those who still eat meat and didn't fall to the vegan, right? We could look at like live cattle, right? Cattle and other foods that we use on a regular basis are up so much, right? Right now, like the US food's been up like 11% right now. We look at small things like eggs are up 39% from last year. We're looking at
Wow.
other items, bread is up 16%. So now how does that affect us and how can we profit over it, right? So when you look at live cattle, right, what does it need in order to get cattle? It takes 2 years from a birth of a calf in order to go to slaughter. But now farmers need corn or wheat in order to feed the cattle. Recently, right? Recently, we have this war in Ukraine, and Ukraine and Russia are responsible for like 30% of the world's grain, right? And I think Ukraine is almost even more than that. So now you have all of this grain and you have this corn from Russia stuck there. So there's nowhere for it to go, right? So that brings up the price of grain, that brings up the price of corn, right? Then now, if the farmers can't get it, right, there's more demand. So now they have to raise their prices. Then we have the price of gas going up, right? Diesel, things of that nature. So that in turns comes back to the consumer, right? Because everything has wheat in it. It's very important. Now Russia now has a lot of sanctions on a lot of companies. So in order for them to export things out, they got to pay sanctions, right? Then it comes all the way back to us as the consumer. It doesn't matter where you live in the world, right? Jamaica, Europe, Asia, America. We all are affected by the price of food. So this is a very lucrative market because you can actually anticipate technically and see where things are going. So like so far this year, the cost of the live cattle industry has been over $480 million. So a lot of this information I'm saying, you can go to the Consumer Price Index report. So just Google it, CPI, Consumer Price Index report, and they'll give you the stats on everything. The price of grain, the price of wheat, the price of coffee, things of that nature. So now let's go back to cattle because a lot of people do eat beef, things of that nature. So now when you take all this into consideration, you can look at a chart, right? You can look at a chart and you can, just like a company, anticipate price movements based off of technical analysis. And also there's analysis, just like the gentleman that are talking right now, talking about the market and talk about the company that can foresee. So they already foresee 2023 and 2024 of prices of cattle going up even higher.
Mhm.
Currently, right now in the US, the average household is paying 40% more for groceries than they did last year. So
Wow.
now a lot of consumers are going to smaller meats like chicken, right, and fish and things of that nature. But the beauty behind those who like to invest and trade, you can make profits by investing in wheat, soybean, right, live cattle, natural gas, and oil. And that's why hopefully it gets approved for you guys that are going to short sell, because the same way right now recently the market has come back down. Corn was up 29% this year, and it recently came back down because in mid-July, Ukraine and Russia, even though they were fighting, they came with an agreement to open up the Black Sea to allow those ships to come through, right? Because it was something like a few $billion worth of grain and corn just sitting there in Ukraine that we rely on throughout the world for trade. So once they allowed those ships to go through, we can see it in the technical chart. You saw the price drop because the demand wasn't there, right? So now you can take opportunities just like the foreign exchange market. There's not a pattern day trading law. Any country can trade and invest in futures market because we're all affected by that. And with the beauty behind it, a lot of it goes in based upon the economics that I'm bringing out right now, and you can capitalize on the movements up and you capitalize on the movements down. And many companies do this, like companies like Starbucks and other coffee companies. They look at the coffee a year in advance. I mean every season that it comes out. I have friends that have clothing lines, right? And they never understood why their supplier, why they're paying more for certain things. Cotton was up 36% this year, mid-July. But when now as a consumer or as a business owner, if you're selling like oils, if you're selling any other products and you're wondering why the price increases, even if you're not an investor or a trader in the futures market, it's best to understand why that price is going up, because now you know, okay, the supplier isn't charging me more because they're trying to take advantage. If you look at the chart for cotton, you can see that cotton has gone higher. Then once you get more information, you understand, fertilizer went up, right? Why did fertilizer go up? Because this happened. And you can follow the daisy chain and get a little bit more educated on why things are happening in the world. And that's the beauty behind it, because no matter where we go in the world at this point, we all need food. We all need a lot of these agricultural commodities, natural gas, oil, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to shed a little bit light on that, because even though we like to invest in our companies itself, great companies that are making profits and making us money as well, a lot of these necessities aren't going anywhere, right? They're going to continue to produce chicken. They're going to continue to produce wheat because we need this in almost everything that we eat. If you open up a box or a label, you're going to see soybean, you're going to see wheat on there because that's what we create, which is unfortunate. We feed our cattle corn, right? That's why people want grass-fed beef, because it's cheaper to feed cattle corn, right? That's how we reproduce things of that nature. So I just wanted to shed a little bit light on that. So as we forecast it and look, the price of food is going to increase, right? So even though we're beating inflation and some prices going down, so if you're not a trader or investor, what is one of the best ways you can help you and your family? Even though we like fresh foods, it's always good to store canned foods, right? So canned foods, if you can stock up and they got a good at least 2 years to 3 years shelf life, it's always good to have that, right? Because the average family right now, beef is still on demand. So even though beef is going up, right, when I read the analyst reports, it's not slowing in demand, we as consumers are still buying that extra. Because I'm not gonna lie, I like oxtails, right? So the oxtail dinner in the US last year was like $18 for a large, 14 for a small. Now they want $34 for a large with like rice and beans and
Wow.
cabbage. You like
No,
what?
oxtail is really expensive here too. It's gotten like really, really expensive in the past year.
Yeah, but see, I understand because I can see that, right? So, like when I have these conversations with people, I said, "Listen, don't blame them, right?" And a lot of people, I know a gentleman who owns a restaurant, and he had menus made because he has steak, right? And he says usually off of every steak with the rice and things of that nature, he might make maybe $5 to $7 per meal, but they can't keep menus up, right? Because the price of steak is always changing, right? So when you start seeing that, and when it comes back to the farmers get frustrated, right? So it's like it's no use to have cattle because, like I said, it takes 2 years from a calf to be a grown one to go to slaughter, right? So now when they go to slaughter, the margins go up, right? Then you got to wait another 2 years, right? Very, very, very important. And like I said, you and we, like we do at the Profit Room, we teach people how to capitalize off these movements, right? Because that market is definitely not going anywhere because that's the things we need.
Wow. This is very, very useful information for us, no matter where you are in the world, because these same factors are affecting us all over the world. We live in a globalized world. Everything is interdependent, Ernest. What are some of the popular platforms that you use there to trade commodities?
So there's a famous one that's called Ninja Trader. Like Ninja Trader is a great one. You can get all this information like at investing.com. Investing.com is one of the best websites to go to and just look for anything that does with economy or commodities, right? You have other platforms like interactive brokers, uh, and depending on the country you're in, right? Like I said, just like the foreign exchange market, the futures market has the same hours. The futures market is open for us 23 hours, 6 days a week, right? So you have the same sessions. You got the Asian session, you have the Australian session, you have the London session, and you have the US session, right? And you can trade these different commodities and indexes: oil, gas, wheat, pork belly, corn, sugar, you name it, it's out there. But I would direct you to investing.com. We have I have a free little mini course. It's called thefuturescourse.com. It's just some information. If you go there, thefuturescourse.com, I have a short video really explaining a lot what I'm explaining now in detail. I go into investing.com. I show you how to navigate it and use it and things of that nature. Yep, thefuturescourse.com, and you could check all that information out. But it's in this. If you're into trading and investing already, this is very seamless. It's not hard at all. It's the same things like these two gentlemen are talking about, showing the graphs and the statistics. It's the same thing, but just think about food. That's it.
Yeah, and so here in Jamaica, you guys can also consider what the local companies that are food producers do. You look at your Steprod, you look at your Jamaica broilers, and the listed companies that are in the food industry as well. So I have a lot of comments, people saying that this was really great information, Ernest. Marlene wants to know if you have Jamaican roots, probably because you mentioned oxtails.
No, I love Jamaican food. Like I love that. See, I'm in New Jersey. I'm like 30 minutes from New York, so I love all Caribbean foods. Like where I'm at, every 15 minutes there's a Caribbean restaurant. So I eat all of that stuff. You know, I love the culture. I love it.
Well, you're welcome to visit whenever you're ready. Just let us know. I'm sure that the
Yes,
community will embrace you. One good thing that you said as well, you mentioned stock up on canned foods. A lot of people here stocked up on canned foods because of Tropical Storm Ian, which is now Hurricane Ian. So guys, Ernest says that it's not a waste. Keep your canned foods
Keep your
for the
food,
next
yeah.
couple of years as long as you can, because food prices are going even higher And while that is depressing news for most of us to know that we're going to have to spend more on groceries, Ernest has outlined the way forward for you as an investor. So really great talking with you, Ernest. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks as well, David. Thanks, Jamar. And
Thanks for having me,
mentioned.
Thanks again, Kalila.
Socrates mentioning Wisynco as another food manufacturer locally that you can keep an eye on. That's it for the analysts. We're going to take a quick break and come back with a recap.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Jamaica National Group. We'll help you find a way.
Hey, moneymakers, you're not an official part of the family until you have your merch. Visit KalilaReynolds.com/store to order your t-shirt and your mask today. Let's get this money. Let's get this money. And we're also going to encourage you to visit Money Mission JA. Hold on, let me type it in right here. MoneyMissionJA.com. The website just went live today to learn all about my new in-person or virtual live course, which covers the areas of budgeting, debt management, and investing. And this is being offered to companies, groups, associations. It really is intended as a group course. So you guys can get together with a bunch of friends and do it. And it's going to be, we can do it face-to-face or we can do it over Zoom or some type of virtual platform if you prefer. It's being offered in October and November only. So go to moneymissionja.com. The link is in the description. Check that out. I want to thank you for joining us yet another week. It was my pleasure hosting you, even with all the difficulties, all the challenges today. Make sure that you like the video if you haven't done so just yet. Subscribe to the channel also if you haven't, and share it with a friend. Also subscribe to the newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter, reminding you that new email subscribers get a copy of my free broker guide, and turn on those post notifications so that you can be the first to see all of my other features. We want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. You heard what Ernest was saying, right? Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Kalila Ray, and follow at KRM_business news on Instagram. Remember, those are my only accounts. Don't fall for anyone saying that they're a backup account trying to sell you some crypto. I don't do that stuff. All right. I do not do that stuff. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. And you can also visit the website, KalilaReynolds.com, for financial information you can use however you like it. Watch, listen, or read. Now, of course, tell a friend about taking stock, because investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Let's get this money.
Let's get this money.